Hello and welcome. Welcome to Biotopia. We're streaming live today on YouTube. Hello all our digital audience. Hope you feel welcome and hope you feel like you can ask some questions in the chat. Same thing goes for you, our physical audience. You're welcome to ask questions, but into this microphone that I'm holding. Today we have a very special guest. If you want to introduce yourself, what's your name?
I'm Agnès, and I'm a plant chemical ecologist.
Okay, and so what are we going to talk about today?
Tonight we're gonna decipher together the language of plants.
Very, very interesting. This is going to be a very nice evening full of things that you didn't know that you wanted to know, right?
Yes, exactly.
Just to reiterate, you're very welcome to ask your questions in the chat or physically here into this microphone. We will be taking questions after the presentation, right? Yeah.
Sorry.
And my name is Daniel. I work here at Biotopia. And with that, we leave you to your thing.
Thank you very much. And thank you for joining tonight. I guess if you are here today, it's because you have been wondering how plants could communicate. And over 5 years of research, I have been trying to decipher the language of plants. And by doing so, I discover new words, the words of plant chemistry and plant chemical ecology, in which I bring you with me tonight. As soon as plants start to germinate, they also start to photosynthesis, to uptake carbon atom, to start building their physical structure, and also producing primary metabolites like sugar and chlorophyll. We will also use this carbon atom to produce what we call secondary metabolites, who are complex chemical compounds such as acids, alkaloids, terpenoids, for example. And as a plant grows, it will start producing thousands and thousands of these chemical compounds. To make you understand what I am speaking about, I brought with me tonight some sage. And we all know that sage have distinct smells. And these smells is due to the chemicals that a plant, or this sage in particular, has. And to make you get to know the plant chemicals, I invite you to take some leaves of sage and smell them. Yeah. You can take a leaves and just pass it around, maybe. And these plants, they release chemicals on the leaves, but also on the stem, the root, and later on the flower, the fruit, and the seeds. These chemicals, they play important ecological role for plants. So first, these chemicals mediate interactions between plants and animals. So all plants are exposed to herbivory, for instance, insect feeding. And they have developed a lot of chemicals to defend against these herbivores. They can be herbivore repellent, deterrent, or anti-feedant. There is many examples in nature that exist. For example, glucosinolate in mustard plant that give this kind of hot and bitter taste of mustard can irritate the digestive tract of the insect, for example. Alkaloid in Solanaceae, so tomato and potato plant, can be neurotoxic, and tannin can also interfere with the ability to process food. Plants also closely interact with a pollinator, which are mutualist animals to them. It can be bees, it can be butterfly, bats, or even birds. And they have developed chemicals to attract these pollinators. Often, what pollinators are looking for is the floral nectar. And they will use the chemicals of plant to locate where the floral nectar is. It can be so the aromatic compound from the flower that can attract pollinators, also the color or the nectar itself. Plants also closely interact with what we call beneficial animals. And for example, some seeds need to pass by the digestive tract of some mammals to then germinate. So we call these animals seeds disperser. And plant can emit some compound to attract these seeds dispersers to feed on the fruit and then to consume the seeds. Here on the picture, you have a parasitoid wasp, which is laying eggs in an aphid. And this is a predator of a feed, which is an herbivore from two plants. And so plants can release volatile and chemicals that attract the predator of herbivorous and thus help the plant to defend against this herbivore. So, for example, if I take this sage plant and I put an insect feeding on it, or I cut it myself, and I crush it in my hands, this I can smell some stronger odor coming from it that I could not smell before just by sniffing the leaves. And these chemicals were emitted by this damage or insect feeding. It's what we call herbivore-induced plant volatile. And is this one who will attract predator of herbivorous insect and will also to help the plant to defend against those insects. And these volatile will start to be emitted from these leaves where that has been damaged. But it will send also a message to all the entirely plant, and all the leaves will also start to produce this volatile even before having been fed by insects. And this volatile can also be perceived by neighboring plants. And themselves, they will start to produce this volatile without having been damaged before even any attack. And so they will be more repellent to insects. And in case of herbivory happen, they will be more prepared and already have prepared their defense to better resist, defend and resist against this herbivore. In the context of my PhD thesis, I have been also wondering if other physiological change could happen in plants that receiving this herbivore-induced plant volatile. And I get interested into studying the photosynthesis and flower production. When we do this kind of experiment in the lab, we work with two groups of plants. One group will be damaged, or some insect will be placed on them to mimic herbivory. And 20 centimeters apart from this plant will be placed untouched receiver plant. They will be separated also by being in two different trays to make sure that there is no communication that can happen between these two plants except by the volatile emission. And we leave them, plants, exposed to each other for 5 days. And after, I look at the receiver plant, flower production, and photosynthesis. The result that you can see on this graph has been published in the Journal of Ecology. And RF represents the plant who has been receiving the odor from the damaged plant. And C represents untreated plant. And we could see that plants were exposed to damaged to volatile from a damaged plant could flower 5 days earlier than the control plant, the untreated plant. And they produced also more flower. And when I look at their photosynthesis, just after exposure to the volatile, they had also a higher photosynthesis rate. What does it mean for this receiver plant? It means that when it is perceiving the signals of alarm from the neighbor plant, it will increase its photosynthesis rate to uptake more carbon, to produce in its turn defenses, but also to induce flowering. This could be a strategy for the plant to make sure that it will reproduce before even herbivore attack. But to really test this hypothesis, we need to also test whether the floral chemistry changed after exposure to the volatile, and then this chemistry, is it changing, and if yes, does it affect pollinator attraction, and at the end, the number of seeds produced, to really know if exposure to damaged volatile can increase the reproductive fitness, the reproductive success of the receiver plants. But we can imagine that it does, because it starts to flower earlier, it makes more flower. We could wonder why this behavior was shaped and selected by the natural selection. Usually, it will, when an organism have a behavior of a trait, to be selected by the natural selection, it need to bring a benefit for that individual. And in this case, it doesn't seem like there is a benefit for the one which is emitting these signals, because this plant is already damaged. And all the benefits go to the neighbor who can't be prepared and also can increase its reproductive success. So how this behavior has been selected? This is a very interesting question, and there is several hypotheses that explain that. One of them is the kin selection hypothesis, which means in a plant population, this alarm signal would trigger defense and resistance to future herbivory only in a plant who are genetically related. So if a plant do not share gene in common, there is low probability it will respond to this message. But I think that the answer to that question is not, we will find it if we look at a greater, higher scale than just individual scale. Because every organism in ecosystem are interconnected. And cooperation and communication might benefit each other if we do so, rather than just being competitive and individual. And one hypothesis exists that supports this statement. It's the mutual benefits hypothesis. So we can imagine two plant populations with different species. One population is doing communication, and one population is not. Now we can imagine that an insect is infested one plant, and this plant will send alarm signals to the neighbor that themselves will start to produce defense and more volatile. The probability that the herbivore leave the population and go to another batch of plant is higher if all the population is defending and releasing, repelling chemicals to that insect. also, if he is not repel enough, there is lower probability he will succeed to complete his life cycle on the other plant surrounding because they will be already defended. And at the opposite, if we take the second population, which is not communicating, then the insect can go to feed on all the other plants who are not prepared and complete his life cycle, lay eggs, and we can imagine a higher herbivore pressure coming in this population. So here, all the individuals benefit from communicating, both the emitter and the receiver. So we have seen that plant chemicals can mediate communication between animals, also between plants, but there is many invisible organisms in nature, such as microbes, and plants also have developed chemicals to defend against pathogen infection, for example. And flavonoids are strong chemicals that are chemicals which has antiviral and antibacterial property, for example. They also closely interact with fungi, and 80% of terrestrial plants have mycorrhizae association. What is mycorrhizae? It's a mutualist fungi that provide nitrogen and phosphorus to plants, and in exchange, plants provide them carbon under a form of sugar. And these associations are very common in nature, and it's because they provide, they are very essential for plants, because without this mycorrhizae, they could not access to certain nutrients they do with mycorrhizae. And in this case, the chemicals of plant will serve to attract these fungi. So the root top of the plant, they will secrete chemicals that we call exudates, that can be amino acid of sugar, that will attract the fungi toward the root. The most probably known association between plants and the fungi, it's oak with truffles, or even trees with boletus that we are very aware of, since we collect picked mushroom almost every fall. And this mycorrhizae also we allow plants to communicate between each other. They will, in this case, be a bridge for plants to transmit secondary metabolites to each other to longer distances than they would do with volatile. They can transmit plant hormones or even defense compounds. When I see all this interaction that plants are having with this organism, and I truly believe that plant chemicals are at the core of all ecosystems. Terrestrial ecosystem above ground, but also below ground, as we saw with mycorrhizae, and also aquatic ecosystems, because algae also can secrete chemicals to interact with the organisms. And I say this also that because plant chemicals for me shape ecological niches and also species distribution. All species in nature are interconnected, and plants are as the base of the ecosystem. They are the primary producer. They are at the first line of trophic interaction. We found them herbivore. And we can imagine this sage. It has strong chemicals, and only certain kind of insect, specialist insect, have developed to feed on that sage. And this sage might have interact and have association with some particular species of mycorrhizae. And this herbivore and pollinator that are specialists to that stage will themselves have predators. And we can keep going and so on like that in all trophic, in the whole trophic levels. And so if we take this sage and a pine tree at the opposite, which has completely different chemicals, a completely different biodiversity will be associated with a pine tree that it would with sage. So an ecosystem like a pine forest in the north will be completely different to a mountain sage. And probably, for me, it's due to the chemicals, the chemistry of plants. There is one organism so far that I have not speak about. This organism is also interconnected with all species in the ecosystem, but it often forgot it. Do you know who I am speaking about or what I'm speaking about? No? What about human? Do you think plant can interact with chemicals with human? I think this is a very interesting question. And human has, as all the other species, co-evolved with plant as long as they have been. We have been using plant for food, clothing, building, and medicine for thousands and thousands of years. Even ancient tribes used to move every season to go where plants, wild edibles, and also prey and fishes were. So people, like soil life, like insect, and every wildlife, is also dependent of plant for their survival. And the body, the human body, and plant chemistry are closely linked because plant chemicals also affect our bodies. Our metabolism has evolved to be at its optimum based on plant chemistry. And a good example for that is the C vitamin. Human was able to synthesize C vitamin. But this ability has disappeared during the evolution because it was not needed. Humans could access to C vitamin daily by consuming wild edible plants. And such as we are like herbivores, we also consume plants. And plant has also developed chemicals to defend against the omnivore that we are. And such as herbivore, these chemicals can affect our bodies. So glucosinolate, taken in high quantity, can be irritative to the digestive tract. And if you have ever dared to eat potato leaves or potato fruit, it will probably give you nausea, vomiting, or abdominal pain. Not so nice. So it's the way of plant to interact with us. And plant chemicals has also long time been our medicine. And a good example is flavonoid present in berries. They are responsible of this color that we know of berries, red and blue. And we often say, eat blueberries, it's good, it's full of antioxidants, it's healthy. But why? It's because antioxidant will limit the potentiality that the reactive oxygen species happen in our cells, which is a natural process of oxidation. And if this process happens, the antioxidant can activate the gene that produced the antioxidant enzyme. This enzyme, they catalyze or detoxify this reaction oxygenative species, this oxidative stress. And plant medicine has been used by human probably as long as human has been, but the oldest trace of use of a plant for medicine is 60,000 years old. And while ancient tribes and nowadays herbalists prefer to use the entire plant as form to access to these chemicals, the pharmaceutical industry prefer to isolate them and synthesize them to be able to manage and have consistent dosage and quantities. So have we deciphered the language of plants? To answer to this question, we can look at the definition. What is communication and what is language? So communication is the ability of sending and receiving information, while language is a system of communication to transmit information. So the question to ask here is, do plants are able to send and receive information? Seems like yes, they are able to send information in the form of chemistry. And we could see also they were receiving this information because they can respond to alarm signals, for example. And other organisms can also receive this information and understand all these chemical cues. So is there a system of transmission of information, and can this system be decoded by receiver organism? So can it be decoded by pollinator? Yes, chemicals emitted by plant can be decoded by pollinator as a cue to find the nectar. The same with beneficial insect. It can be detected as a cue to find as a prey. Herbivore, it can be seen as a cue to not feed on that plant. And fungi, it can be cue to look to find the root of the plant indirectly to access to carbon resources. And what about human? It seems like human also can understand the cues emitted by plant to know whether a plant can be consumed or not. And if you are still not convinced about that, I have a last argument. Have you ever tried to know if a tomato or a fruit was ripe and ready to eat? We have the innate ability to determine if a fruit is mature or not. So we have this innate ability just with a visual cue to know the plant chemistry. We know that this fruit, more than another, it's full of sugar at this moment and full of nutrients. So I truly believe that humans also have the ability to understand the chemical language of plants. If you are interested in that topic, I highly recommend you to read The Lost Language of Plants, written by Stephen Harold Bühner. I have the book here. I really love that book. And this book synthesizes very nicely. It's both science, but also a lot of philosophy inside, and synthesizes nicely the importance of plant chemicals for ecosystem and all life on Earth, including human. As a researcher, I would love that all this knowledge does not belong only to scientists, but also belong to the people. And that's why I am here tonight. And as an herbalist, I would like people to get to know plant in nature and learn all that with plant and learn to use plants. And it's in this goal that I created Nordiska Örter to help everyone to immerse themselves with local nature and learn about using herbs with a hand-on training. I would like that when people join Nordiska Örter, they can learn what to forage in nature and or alternatively, which plant to grow and are useful to have in the garden. and what to do with those herbs and how to become more self-sufficient using herbs. Self-sufficiency, it's a topic that interests me a lot since me and my partner bought last summer a cottage in the wood in Uppsala. And we are completely self-sufficient. We are off-grid and we produce our own electricity. And we are also self-sufficient on heating and water. And I aim to be also self-sufficient on herbs production and vegetables production. I would love to open a plant medicinal garden where people could come and get to know medicinal plant in practice. And also potentially sell any herbal product and tea and culinary herbs to Uppsala. But this year, it's officially started Nordiska Örter, and you can already start to learn about plants, either at the Meborganskolan, where first courses will be from June to September, or in Biotopia. We will have also a workshop by the end of May. But if you really want in-depth learning and knowledge about local plants and how to use them and how to identify them and what do they do, I really recommend you to join the wildcrafting courses that will start from May to October. For this course, we will meet one Sunday per month and wildcraft wild edible plants. So we will forage for wild edible plant in forest, in meadow, urban area, to really get to know the local nature and become aware of plants surrounding you. By also making your own product, you will access to a more self-sufficient life, sustainable life, save money by not purchasing products that come from far away. So I hope to see you this summer to wildcraft for plants, and I hope that together we can empower the ability to decipher the language of plants. Thank you very much. So if you have questions, you are welcome.
So we have one question from the internet, which is more of a rhetorical question. And with your permission, I will rephrase it a little bit.
Yeah.
This is somebody who thinks you're very brilliant and wonders, what plant should we eat to get as brilliant as you? And my interpretation of that question is, what is your favorite plant? What is your favorite plant amongst the Swedish native species?
Nettles.
Nettles?
Yeah, nettles.
The ones that sting you?
Yeah.
Why?
Why? I think nettles are so wonderful. Because they are already coming now. Like they have a long, you can find them in nature for a very long season. Like from now to probably till latest maybe the end of November. And they sting, yes. But they are so nutritious. Like I eat nettle seeds all the winter long. Like nettles, you can eat everything. You can eat the leaves. Normally the stem and the root could be also eatable, but we don't. But the seed also, and they are so full of nutrients. Yeah, just nettles. And also nettles is super abundant. And they can be picked 5 times. Like if you cut one time, they will regrow. Another time, they will regrow. Another time, so it's super. No problem. You will never. I think there is low chance that nettles will disappear, even if we forage for them. Like
we find them in a lot of places. But are they tasty?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's many recipes. Of course, nässelsoppa.
Yeah.
It's very famous.
I love it myself.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So there's many more. Like I like to make pie or juice with like apples and juice them.
Nice.
Yeah, and also some wrap like with feta cheese and mint, and yeah, it's very good.
I think we're going to have a cooking course soon, right? Yeah. Very good tip. So, any questions in the audience? We have a few hands up. I will pass the mic along here.
I was wondering, in the beginning you talked about agriculture and pests.
Yeah.
And I mean, now we use a lot of chemicals to protect the plants from the pests. But could it be an option to produce those volatiles and spray them so that the plants defend themselves? Do you know, is that realistic or is that being done already?
No, this is under study actually. Yes, completely. So your question was to know if instead of like spreading chemicals in the agriculture field, we can use this ability of plant to defend and to send signals through volatile to protect plants in the field. So yes, we are studying it. So there's many things that can be done. Some people, they will have a field and different crop, like push and pull system. So some crop will attract the pest out of the field, and some other we push the insect towards the plant out of the field. Also, there is also some research who try to select to determine why a certain plant are emitting volatile and which one are receiving and responding to it, and is there some varieties of plant more within species more than other that have this ability to respond and defend when they receive volatile, in order to we could grow only this variety. So like that, each time there is one which is damaged, it sends message to the neighbor. So for example.
You said also that, I'm not sure if it was just a hypothesis, that if, for example, there is a herbivore on a plant, it communicates best with like its cousins or plants that are genetically close.
Yeah.
So if you have a sort of permaculture, do you recommend that you have more similar plants close to each other so they can communicate better and be more resilient and have better defense against predators?
No, still I will. Now I will still recommend to have diversity, I think. But there is some research which has been shown with sagebrush, for example. They found that also when they are genetically related, their chemistry is also very close. Close is the same, and so. The chemicals signals sent to them are better perceived, probably because they are sharing the same chemistry. But in case of even for pest control, we could imagine in a permaculture garden. I still think that diversity is the best, even in ecosystem. I think diversity, it's always the best. Diversity in species, but also in varieties, to make sure that if one plant is infested by an insect, it has more that is diversity, more it has less chance to spread. So even so, there is this which is no, like the kin selection hypothesis, I still would recommend diversity. Yeah.
So we have another question from the chat here.
Yeah.
Do you think nowadays, when people live in the city, away from nature, with time they will lose their connection with nature, a connection that they had from the beginning?
Okay, how quickly we lose? Is this the question?
It's a question. Do you think that will happen at all?
Totally, I think so. I think that when we are children, all of us, we have this kind of innate ability to be very connected to the nature and to plants. Like it's common to see plants speak, not plants, children speak to the plant. And then when we grow up, we kind of lose this. But I think there is more chance to get closer to nature and plant and understand this chemistry when we really spend time with plants.
So I think, sorry, the question was, I misread it. So referring to what you said with our way, humans' ability to communicate or to understand plant communications, like when the tomatoes are ripe, will we lose that, do you think?
No, because this is innate. Yeah. So I think it's really hard. But I don't know, because when you see in supermarket, there is so much unripe fruit and vegetables. And I will say an anecdote. I was once at a store, and there was 2 batch of tomato. And one, they were very red and ripe and like high price, because it was like time to eat them. And then kind of normal red, not so ripe tomato at normal price, and just next to each other. And which bucket and people used to take was just the full price and look nice tomato, and not the ripe one. So for me, it's something I don't understand. But that's why for me it's innate. I will never take this kind of tomato. But it seems that we can lose this ability. Totally. When I see what can happen in supermarket.
So maybe in the future we might not be able to taste the difference even.
I hope not.
Do we have any more questions? Nobody? Well,
we have
we have another question. Okay.
I study soil, and I see the importance of nourishing the bacteria in soil. Do you have like a tip of understanding what kind of plants give the right type of food to the bacteria to like boost microbacterial life in the soil?
I'm not a soil biologist, but I would say that leaf tree.
Trees.
Yeah, leaf of the trees.
Oh, the leaf, yeah.
Yeah, when they fall, that's I think the best known way to feed and attract all these fungi and also bacterial life. Yes.
So I actually have a question here.
Okay.
Kind of got inspired by your question there. You were talking about the root exudates.
Yes.
The compounds that are released by the plant roots to communicate, right?
Yeah.
What do they have any other role as, like, could they help feed the bacteria, for instance? Or how much material is this that is exuded by the roots?
How much chemicals?
Yeah, how much chemicals? How much and do they contain any energy for, like, are they nutritious in any way?
Yeah, because they are like amino acid and sugars, and the fungi are attracted by these chemicals because they will then use them. Yes. So they what do the fungi? It's either it's stay outside the cells of the plant, or go even inside inside the cell of the plant, and will feed on this secretion.
So that also then serves a purpose for carbon capture, for instance, like how to sequester carbon from the atmosphere into the soil.
Yeah.
Very important for that.
Yeah, totally. Healthy soil is when I say healthy soil, it's a soil very full of life. It's known to be a good carbon sequester. To sequester carbon.
Sequesterer, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Okay, yeah, we have a question here.
Thanks a lot for this very interesting talk. I learned a lot from you. And I wonder, It's hard to not to talk about global warming now. So I wonder, maybe it's a very general topic, but how do you think the global warming will change or shape the plant communication? Like, it could include plant-plant communication, maybe also plant and other animal communication. Like, yeah. Do you get my question?
Yes, if climate change will affect these communications.
Yes.
When we say climate change, we need to think about which factors are changing with climate change. It can be temperature, it can be higher drought, and many other factors. But for instance, temperature, we know that warmer it is, more volatile are emitted by plants. And also, so many factors can affect this volatile emission. And by changing these blends of chemicals, it can, in that way, affect the communication. So either by changing the message which is sent, or interfering with the message, if it's pollution, for example. And also when there is a higher temperature and drought, for example, we know that the plant will close their stomata and to avoid transpiration. And in this case, they can't really uptake the message sent by the volatile. So yes, it can totally affect. It can, for instance, with animals also, what can happen, it's a desynchronization in the, usually when insects who are associated with plants are synchronized. They will be in the same time during the season. And with climate change, sometimes the insects arrive earlier than the plants. And so they don't have, just the interaction can't happen because they are not synchronized. Yeah, that's many. Okay.
Oh, just one more question here that I have. There was a study that was made in Israel recently, where the results were that they found that certain species of plants could produce sounds when under stress.
Yeah.
And they could even identify the species of plant producing the sound and what type of stress it was. Can this be a new type of plant communication?
Totally. Yeah.
Do you think the plants have any ability to receive the sounds? Because I understand that is what is missing right now. They have no idea if the plants can actually receive this sound.
I think so, because what is sound? It's vibration. And we know plant can detect vibration because when an insect, for instance, is walking on the plant, there is some study who show that just this walk and can trigger this. So I guess it's mechanical, like the vibration. Or also a very famous example of how plant can detect vibration. It's carnivorous plant that closed, and this vibration of a certain the hair. It has free hair, and how the hair are vibrating, they will the plant will close or not. So I think plant can perceive vibration, yes. And I'm pretty sure the root, especially, do perceive vibration.
That is very interesting. I'm looking forward to the results of whatever study is coming next that will prove you right. Right? I hope we can all agree on that. That will be very interesting to see.
Science is always only hypothesis that, and one day they are proven, and sometimes we are proven for years until something new make it's not anymore right. So that's my hypothesis.
It's fun in a way that there's a lot happening in this field. It's very interesting. So do you have any more questions? Otherwise, I think we will wrap this up. I will say thank you, Agnès, for
thank you very much.
the very wonderful presentation. And we from Biotopia would like to hand you over a little gift
Okay. Thank you very much.
that might help you in your culinary adventures,
Yeah.
at least.
I see that. Yeah, should I
There's
show
a bit
it?
of a, yeah, you're welcome to show it if you want.
Thermos. It's good to go out. And yeah.
Yes,
Cup.
exactly. That's a
Nice.
classic here in Sweden to
Yeah.
eat or drink from that.
Yeah, I can make a nettles tea and then bring it with me.
Perfect, exactly. So, and with that, I hope more of you will join us on the 31st of May for the workshop
Yeah.
on edible plants.
Yeah.
And
We will probably eat nettles.
yeah, there will be nettles. Okay, that's a good promise. And with that, we say thank you and good evening.
Have a good evening.